thanks everyone for joining. I'm super excited. You know, this is the last day of Latinx Heritage Month, but I think that it's also nice to be able to collaborate with Venture Cafe in Philly to celebrate professionals within the community, within Philadelphia, Latinx leaders. So the topic of our discussion today is bold Latinx leaders within Philadelphia. So I'm going to introduce myself, and then I would love to kind of introduce the speakers for today, or I'm not going to introduce, I'll let you guys introduce yourselves, because I think you'll do a better job of just obviously introducing, you know, some of the things and initiatives that you guys have going on. So my name is Shannon Morales. I consider myself Afro-Latina. My mother is African-American, and my father is Colombian. I'm the founder of Echo Me Forward. It's a software as a service recruiting platform that connects diverse talent to equitable workplaces in tech and startups. I'm also the Philly chapter director of Techeria, which is the largest Latinx organization focused on professionals in technology. So, hello, and let's just see, is everyone on? Yes. So I am going to start by, I'm going to let DJ introduce herself.
Hi, I'm DJ. My pronouns are she, her. I am the chief of staff to the CEO over at Boomi, which is a Dell Technologies business. On my free time, I actually am going to launch my own company that is based around AI and algorithm to really start getting companies DEI scores so they can start measuring their impact going forward. And I'm going to pass it to Ivonne.
Thank you, DJ. My name is Ivonne Martinez. I am originally from Mexico. I moved to the United States when I was a kid with my family. I have a bachelor's degree in manufacturing engineer. I have worked as an engineer for the past few years, and I have recently founded my company. I make safety shoes for women, but fashionable. So my focus with that is to empower women to be themselves, even though they have to go to work and wear safety shoes, so they don't have to compromise their sense of style or safety. And I'm going to pass it on to Esteban.
Sorry about that. Can you hear me now? I was mute.
Yes, we can hear you.
Well, I am Esteban. I'm originally from Chile. I have a long story of migration. So I didn't come to the US straight. I went to Mexico first, where I lived 3 years in Mexico City and Cuernavaca, where I got my degree in sociology. Later on, I crossed the border and I arrived to the US. I got here, I work in several places, mostly doing research, but also doing some adjunct teaching. And at the end, I went back to school and I got a degree in geography. And what I do now mostly is geographic information systems. And I work now in a nonprofit in Camden. It's HopeWorks.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of us know about HopeWorks. They do such an amazing job in the community. So thank you, everyone, and so glad that you guys can join us. So the theme of today, or I believe Venture Cafe had an amazing theme, which is bold. So I'm going to kick it off by asking a question. Do you guys consider yourself bold? Why or why not? I don't know who to start with, but I guess I can just start with, let's see, Esteban.
That was a bold move.
Well, because you were last.
I know. Okay. Do I consider myself bold? I really think that all those who migrate to another country are somehow bold.
Mm-hmm.
And because it's not easy to leave your country, and it is not easy to invent yourself. But also I like to trace like a difference between being a Latino first generation and second generation. I am a first generation. I came here with no family. Well, I have a family now, but I did not have it before. So then I'm that first generation. So for me, the move was pretty kind of, it was bold in the sense that okay, the only thing that I really knew about the US is what I saw in the movies.
Mm-hmm.
And I like the movies, and it was New York. So my picture of the US was New York, wasn't the rest of the country. Ironically, I ended up living 2 years in Kentucky, in Eastern Kentucky, in the Appalachia, which I tried to compute in my mind, like, this is somehow like Chile. This is not what I had in mind. So to answer your question, yes, I do consider myself bold, because actually it was kind of reckless coming here without much of a plan, except this kind of very kind of diffuse idea of how long I'm going to be here. I didn't know how long I was going to be here either, or where I was going to live. So for me, it was everything like an experiment sort of thing.
Right. Absolutely. And I absolutely love that story. I think a lot of people can relate to similar stories of coming from other countries and having to kind of familiarize yourself with the way that we do things here in the States. Ivonne, how about you? Do you consider yourself bold? Why or why not?
I think I consider my actions bold. I wouldn't, I guess it's hard for me to say that, oh, I am bold. But when I look back at the things that I've accomplished, or my goals in life, the things I want to do, and I take a step back and I say, like, oh my God, like all the things I've done, like Esteban says, like as immigrants, we do big moves to different countries. We have that culture shock to places that we don't know what to expect, and we just keep going. And I think sometimes we're so wrapped in that keep going mentality, like I want to survive, I want to do this, and you're just so used to that until you take a moment to relax and look back at all the things you have accomplished, you can say, oh my God, those were bold moves. How can I just leave my country? When I graduated from university, I live in Texas, and I got a job in Pennsylvania. And I said, yeah, I'll be there in 2 weeks. I packed my things, everything that fit in my car. I put it in my car. I say goodbye to my mom, to my friends, and I drove. And I drove from Texas to here. And now that I look back, it's like, oh my God, I drove by myself across the country. And just because you have that vision, you have that drive. But I guess it'll be yes in a way, but no until later on, I will consider myself bold.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like that is definitely a bold move. A lot of people are afraid to even, pack up and travel or move, across town, let alone across country. So I definitely do consider you bold, and that's not a bad thing. It's definitely a great thing. So good job.
Thank
and
you.
DJ, how about you? You're welcome.
Yeah, I resonate with what both Esteban and Ivonne said, moving and uprooting your life into a culture that you may not belong in. As a Chicana in California, it was a much different place than in Southern Virginia, in a town called Mechanicsville, right? Everyone carried guns, and I was the first brown person on my street, right? Where I came from California, where I had a community. And so I think we're all bold in the fact that we've moved, we're resilient, and we've able to find these career paths with each other and our network. So I think we're all bold here.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just going to turn my camera off for a little bit just because I'm in a awkwardly lit situation, but I guess that kind of leads into my bold story. I'm a single mom of 3 beautiful daughters, and I definitely took a chance on myself by switching careers and becoming a full-time entrepreneur in the tech or tech-enabled space, I will say, but definitely in the tech space, from going from being in finance for 5 years to saying, okay, I want to make a completely different move in my career and really focus on, you know, how am I going to lead a purpose-driven life, and being able to support my daughters without, I guess, working for like larger corporation. It was definitely a scary thing, definitely super risky. But I will say, being able to drive to gymnastics practices and do fun things, you know, with my daughters, and not having, you know, that limit, but having a little bit more flexibility to kind of raise my family as well as, you know, see my business grow was, you know, I guess that probably was the boldest move that I've made so far. So our second question is, what are some of your failures that you would like to share? Like, what are some of your biggest failures that have shaped, you know, who you guys are today? So
I love how she just asked that question without even buying us a drink. It's like, let's just air all of our mistakes in your life. Just, you know, like, this is therapy. Just drop the mic.
Absolutely. I mean, DJ, yeah, you can go first. It felt like you had a lot to say.
Esteban, it looks like you didn't nod at first, so we'd love to hear it.
Okay, I can go first. It's kind of difficult question for me, and I think in general for everybody, because sometimes, and you know, when you go and apply for a job, what are the failures? You know, okay, you need to have a list of 3 things to say. But what I have learned somehow preparing for all these kind of events is that failures also are opportunities. So there was a lot of things that I was carrying in my bag that somehow I felt that at the beginning was going to be difficult to overcome, such as language, culture, my skin color. So when the situations were difficult for me, I had to do with those, and particularly with language, because when I came to the US, I just didn't know a word of English. No, that's a lie. I knew some words, but I didn't know how to speak it really. I never spoke. So coming in here, it was very, it was difficult to being able to integrate when you are just so isolated. I moved here with my wife. She's American, but I was just pretty much following her. I was not able to build my career yet. I needed to finish my thesis and all those kind of things. So with that said, I needed also to kind of reinvent myself. So at the beginning, I thought that a lot of stuff that I had were an obstacle, such as my profession. I have a degree in sociology. And I thought, well, what am I going to do in sociology? It's like, who wants to hire a sociologist? But I started mixing certain things. I went to school, then I got my degree in geography, GIS. And I think that what I got now is a sense that with this technology field, if you want to call it that way, as a GIS, Geographic Information Systems, it mixes so much with sociology, especially in the kind of things that I do, where I work with immigrants, with youth, all different populations, with occupation, with labor market topics and so on. So for me, it's, I have gained a lot thanks to that, what you want to call failure. Because I realized that one that did not allow me to get involved in things as much as I wanted, now somehow became an asset. Because what I'm given is way more than what I got at the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely love that ending, that what you're getting is way more than, you know, I guess wherever you fail. So it's always called, you know, if you're going to fail, then fail forward. Ivonne, how about you? What are some of your failures?
Ooh, so many to choose. But I guess the one that has given me the biggest challenge to learn and to overcome that failure, it's trusting my God and trusting me. When I first started working as a full-time engineer, being a woman engineer in a field that is mostly men dominated, and being as a Latina in a big dominated area with white men. I mean, not just to be rude, but it's the facts. And when I first started, I was giving ideas, giving opinions of projects or things to how to fix the equipment and things like that. And I noticed that my opinions were questioned more than normal. And that made me feel like, oh my God, do I really know what I'm doing? And started doubting myself. And I failed to recognize that in the beginning. So for a while, I was like double checking everything before I said, talking to people on the side rather than in the meeting when the question was asked, doubting whether should I send that email or not. And that is just, it's a little thing that it grows. It grows in your mind, it grows in your head, and it starts bringing you back in a lot of things. After a while, when I got more comfortable and understanding what was happening to me in the area, I decided, and I'm still, I guess, working on speaking when I have an idea, speaking out loud and just not doubting my ideas. I know everybody thinks differently. We all see things in a different perspective. And just because someone questions my points of view doesn't mean that my points of view are wrong. It's just that I see them differently. So I think that's one of the things that in my career that has affected me most, but also I'm working towards it, and I can see the difference in the projects, in the time that I complete projects, and how the outcome of everything. And that confidence, or that knowing that I'm actually smart, I know what I'm doing. It just helps. It helps everybody around and create a better community with your team. So
Absolutely. And I think some people can relate to that as well, like having situations or running into situations where you feel, like maybe like you're not valued, or like you maybe you're there, but by accident, and you start to doubt yourself and you start to doubt your work. And it takes some time to get over that. It really does. And it could be years. But once you get out of that mindset that, oh, maybe it's me, and you realize that, no, it's not me, it's either somebody else, or, the perspectives that someone else has against me, then you start to kind of own, your career, your life, and your journey. So that's definitely a tough thing to kind of be aware of. But once you get there, then you're like, yes, now I know who I am, and I know I'm going to continue to make an impact. So thank you so much for sharing, Ivonne.
Yep.
DJ, how about you?
I was thinking as I was biding my time. So like them, I also have lots of failures. I think, that's what makes us us. But I think the one that I'm thinking of lately, especially this month, is Spanish is my first language. And growing up in a small town in Washington State, I mean, we didn't even have a stoplight. And they didn't know what ESL was, and that was a new thing at the time when I was growing up, English as a second language. So got bullied a lot, and, Spanish was still my go-to. You just convert English back to Spanish and figure out the word. And then over the years, I just stopped speaking Spanish. It was just easier to not. It was easier to think in English first. There are still some words that English doesn't have a good word for, so I revert to Spanish. But for the most part, I'm not fluent anymore, and all of my family is. which makes Taco Tuesday nights incredibly awkward because I can't understand anything. But I think that's my biggest thing, that in the next, 2 years, I'd love to actually pick up and be fluent again, because that was so much of my culture. And then I just gave up just because it was easier than to just keep fighting a different path. Shannon, what about you?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Failures. I want to say, like, early in my career, I made, and I think, I'm definitely not hard on myself about making this mistake, but early in my career, I decided to focus on careers that made the most money, right? And I think this might be like just a young, when you're young, you don't know. So you're like, okay, let me Google and research like whatever industry or type of job makes the most money, like that's what I'm going to go after. So I spent a lot of time, a lot of years, a lot of just studying, trying to get into a career that I ended up absolutely hating. So I worked in finance for the past 5 years. Well, prior to working in entrepreneurship, but I worked in financial planning and analytics because everyone was telling me that that's where I should be. And then I just spent my time really not enjoying my career at all, and really just being upset with myself that I just wasted the past, X amount of years doing something that wasn't fulfilling. I want to say it wasn't until maybe recently, probably the past 2 years, that I realized that, I can be anything I want to be. All I have to do is be confident in myself and kind of change my mindset. And when I decided to change my mindset and just focus on things that just make me happy, what makes me happy, working for a purpose, doing things that help others, and just consistently staying on that path. So whether that was volunteering or working, actually creating something, that as long as I was staying true to like my overall mission, that I was going to be in good hands. So for me, my biggest failure was spending a lot of time on a career that wasn't fulfilling for me, and definitely getting down on myself for not being successful in it. But I realized that the reason I wasn't successful in it was because I wasn't passionate about it. So no more of that. How I want to ask, I guess the next question, and this is kind of like a little bit backwards, but I want to know, how has being Latinx affected you today? And I feel like we touched on this a little bit, but I guess I really want to focus on how it affects you in your career today, as opposed to just in general. I mean, I guess I can say a couple of things about it. And actually, yes, sure, why not? I'll start. So I want to say I honestly haven't, I recently started identifying myself as being Afro-Latina, just because I didn't really know how to categorize myself. Like, what box do I check, when I say, I'm African American and I'm Colombian? Is there a particular box? Like, do I check Black and African American, or do I check Hispanic and Latina, or do I check biracial? Because I live with my mom and she's African American. So for me, it was just, honestly, I was just so confused. I had absolutely no idea, what to say. Now I say, and I own it, I am biracial, but I'm African American and I'm Latina. So it doesn't mean that I have to be one or the other. And kind of having that self-awareness now has made me feel so much more confident in who I am. And saying, yeah, hey, I want to take a trip to Colombia because my dad, grew up there, or, I want to go here because my mom grew up here. It doesn't mean that I have to choose one over the other. And I will say, like, when I was younger, I used to get picked on a lot. Sometimes I wasn't Black enough for the Black kids, and I wasn't Spanish enough for the Spanish kids, because I couldn't speak Spanish. I still can't speak Spanish. And when I say taqueria, sometimes I don't roll my R's. So for me, it's affected me because it's either like you own it all the way, or you just have to, don't say anything until you can learn to just come into yourself and realize like who you are, and that nobody's opinion, you know, other than the people around you matters. So that's how being Latinx has affected me today. That was a little bit more personal than career, obviously, and I said career, but I guess however it's affected you, either career or personally, would be a great share. So would anybody like to share? I hate calling on people. I feel like the mean teacher. I guess I'll start with Esteban.
Oh, I got everything. So I think I already touched this a little bit, but I would like to add a little bit. So for me, Latino is something I became in the US. I was not Latino in Chile. So it's something that I'm working on it, just as Shannon mentioned, with her own identity. My case is I have found that I have this different identity, that I'm not white, that I have an accent. Some people say it's a Scottish accent, but it looks more like a Latin American accent. And so those are kind of things that I carry with me. I just cannot get rid of it. And I don't, at this point, we're talking about like getting comfortable with yourself. At this point, I really don't know if I want to get rid of it. There's some things that I would like to improve, like vocabulary wise, all those kind of things, carrying your dictionary and all that. But my Latinx-ness, I don't know if you can say that, like whiteness, Latinx-ness, it's something that I want to keep. Allows me to relate to other people with different backgrounds, which I was not forced to do. Probably forced to is not the right word, but it wasn't something that I would face every day. While now I had to face people with different background, different culture, different ethnicity, races, accents. So what I carry with me is diversity. And what I can bring also is diversity. It's not just like an empty individual that relates to a workspace, that does a job application and shows itself like in an empty page. I carry so many things. I carry my Latinxness. I carry my skin, my language. I carry my professions. I carry a sociology in my bag. I carry a geography in my bag. I mean, so many things that accompany me as a Latino, but it goes beyond that. But I'm happy to say that what I'm carrying from my heritage is something that makes you strong. Especially now, you have a global society, you just cannot be local. And I feel that I'm global, you know, and it's great, it feels great. I think we lost.
I guess I'll go next.
Shannon?
I was just waiting for mean teacher. So.
Yeah, sorry.
The mean teacher is not here.
All right, go Ivonne.
All right. Yeah, a little bit of background. When I was younger, I used to hate my last name, Martinez. Like for me, in my school, there were a lot of Martinez. And I was like, oh man, I really don't like my last name. But now that I am far away from home, from Mexico, from my family, my mom lives in Texas, my dad lives in Mexico, and I'm the only Martinez over here. And now I am so proud of my last name. All the things that I have achieved and where I'm now here, I just wanna like, Martinez, I'm Latina, I'm from Mexico, I speak Spanish. Do you speak Spanish? Please let's talk Spanish. And I think being Latina, it just feels different when you're far away from your home. And you shouldn't. I think we should always be proud of our heritage, from who we are. If we're mixed, if we have 2, 3, 1, we should always be proud of what makes us us. And now I don't want to get rid of my last name, even though I already got married. I should probably, but yeah, I just think it gives me that boost or that confidence, not confidence, and extra energy, knowing that I'm the only one from my family all the way over here in Pennsylvania, working as an engineer. Like it took so much effort, not just for me, but for my whole family. And being here, being where I'm at, it just makes my last name so more special. So, yep.
Yep. And I totally agree with what you said, Surprise, there. It permeates, being a Chicana permeates through everything I do, you know, and there's something about a community, especially working in tech. And my background is engineering, and I left that field because it was, as Ivonne said, white dominated, and I just felt, I felt like the only, and you never want that for anybody. And working at a tech company, one of my biggest pushes is to hire a community, because as a Chicana, as the only one 5 years ago, it felt weird. So everything I do is about promoting specifically so no one else is the only. So right now we're focusing on Black and Latinx because, you know, there is only 3% of our org, respectively, those talents. So when I think about being a Chicana, I think about a community and bringing those around us, because there's just this unspeakable thread. I mean, me, Yvonne, we met on a street. We both were like, oh, you're Mexican? Oh, hey, let's be friends. Like literally just at a fair and random. And we've been best friends since, because there are things that you can't explain, like the cravings for ajaritos or like the tamales. She didn't even know how to make salsa. Like, I was like, you're from Mexico. So, you know, just there's a shared sense of community that you just pick up from people who have the same heritage as you.
But now I know how to make salsa, just to let everybody know. I learned.
my guacamole is not that bad, but I'm sure you could probably cook me under the table any day as it relates to that. But as just kind of feeding off of what you were talking about, DJ, about like that sense of community. So I know Philadelphia in general, it's just been tough to kind of find Latinx professionals in technology, you know, within Philadelphia and greater Philadelphia region. And I wanted to ask, like, what are some communities that you guys are a part of or know of that you can share with the audience today? So, you know, I guess, for instance, I'm working on building up the chapter of Tech-a-dia for Philly, which is obviously Latinx in tech. But I was wondering, are there any existing ones that, you know, have helped you guys through your career journey today? And what are they, so that we can, you know, just share? Esteban?
Yeah, I'm back here in the first. I think I wanted to say something before, and it kind of resonates a lot with what you guys have said regarding your experience, the challenges that you had, especially as a woman. I was checking the statistics because I kind of things that I do in the meantime when I'm having fun. I do statistics, and then I found, okay, Latinos in the US are about 18%. And this is a task. So you can write it down if you want. Do you know what's the percentage of Latino women in the computer engineering field? I'm gonna give you, just guess.
9?
It's 1%.
Oh,
Wow.
So when people with different skill backgrounds, they face themselves in a situation like coming here, apply for a job, background, all that, they are facing that 1% for women. Other ones are facing the 7%, but there is always an underrepresentation of a Latino, of a Latino woman, and so on. So I just wanted to, I didn't want to forget this because I thought it resonates with the conversation we are having now. And you were asking about community. I think okay.
Yeah.
I kind of got lost in that part. So in my case, the community is a little kind of more complicated than a Chicana woman or a Mexican woman. I mean, I can count Chileans in the States. So it's not like we are exuberant. We're just a very small number. And with the community sort of thing that I have are the friends that I hang out with. Now, since there are not many Chileans around, ironically, my community, and this really goes beyond the workspace, are my foreign friends, all those who are also feeling awkward. My Greek friend, my Portuguese friend. So it's there. This is a community that it kind of way it supports you, even though it could be just a space to vent, and maybe that's what we need, because it seems kind of obvious for some. For the American mainstream, I would say, being able to feel comfortable where they are. In my case, I don't always feel comfortable. It's not just my Scottish accent, it's just my whole being. Sometimes it just does not fit. It's in the way that you talk, the way that you think. One of the hardest part that I need to control myself when I'm being here in social situations is just, I cannot say whatever comes to my mind. And that was so Chilean. It was like, you are politically incorrect, good, you're Chilean. But it's very difficult for me to kind of, how much should I say? And I don't know if Dan is here. I don't know if he should listen to this part. But I do control myself somehow. So my community is a community that I carry here in my back, because they are well supporting me in any kind of situation, not just work situation, but in everything. And I had to say also that I am very lucky that I landed in a place that works, because I think it's for the first time after so many jobs that I have gone through that it feels like a community, if you want to put in those terms. It feels like this is a friendly environment, that people are really concerned of what's going on with you. Because it goes beyond you, beyond your position. It's not about you, it's about those who are sitting there in the desk learning new skills. And that's the youth in Camden. I don't know if I answer your question. I try my best.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think you definitely answered the question, because like you said, there may be not that many people, from where you're from. So you kind of find ways to build that supportive community within the places that you work, with your friends, just people around you. And that makes absolute sense. Ivonne, how about you? What's a community or supportive network that you go to just to kind of help through, tough times? Or
I guess when I'm such an introvert, so I tend to just be by myself. But I guess this year has shown me how much I miss my community. Like, I thought that I was always like the lonely one, not the lonely one, but like so comfortable being by myself. And I get so busy into my own things that like my time flies. It's like, oh man, it's hard to hang out with friends. But now that this pandemic has like put me at home and just stay at home, it's like, oh my God, I do really miss my community, my friends, my family, someone to talk to. And And you mentioned organizations. Since this past few years when I started my business, I've been so busy that I haven't fully give more time to being part of a society or a community. I used to be part of the SHIP, Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers. So if someone's looking for a professional or student society, they are a great community where you can meet other Hispanics in engineering, all kinds of technology. They have events. So I used to go to those events. They have their national conferences or local conferences, and it's nice. It's really good to see other engineers your same age that are in the same industry or different industries. If you want to find out more about a specific industry, if you want to move, those are great places where you can communicate, where you can get in touch with people. When I was in school, that community helped me a lot to be better at interviews, networking with people, and now I have those friends that I know that are across the country, but I know those are my Latinos over there working in engineering, in jobs that are important and specific. So that's a great place to find a community, close to you, or I guess around the country. But yeah, I hope I answered the question.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's no like right or wrong answer when, just talking about like what type of community you kind of rely on or you go to for support. Yeah, so you definitely answered the question. DJ, how about you? I feel like you have like a wealth of information in terms of like community
She does.
and organization.
Strangers are only friends you haven't met yet. So, but yeah, I do have a bunch of organizations that has helped me throughout my journey. But right now, like, SPHE that Ivonne was mentioning was a great one. Tequeria is phenomenal. I've found some amazing people from there. My current drink, my current juice is it's a form of executive women. Right now at my level, I report to the CEO. There's less than 1% Hispanic women who report to a CEO. And there's not even a percent that is in my age category, my generation. And so having that organization form of executive women would be like, how do I navigate this situation? Or I'm in front of X, how would you do this? And I think that at my part in my journey, they've just been extremely helpful and just a great way to build who I am. So I highly recommend that organization right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Forum of Executive Women, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'll definitely put that in my notes. And you've touched on Tequeria. So there's a couple for me that have been extremely helpful as it relates to entrepreneurship. And Ivonne, this might also help you as you continue your entrepreneurial journey. But Philly Startup Leaders has been amazing. They were my first accelerator program when I relaunched Echo Me Forward. I've also been a part of Kennovation, which is another accelerator, but they're great networks in terms of like entrepreneurship and helping you get from, one place to the next, especially as you're, constantly pivoting and changing your ideas. And sometimes you just need another fellow entrepreneur to say, hey, is this normal? Like, am I supposed to be changing my business idea this many times? And just having them as a sounding board. And honestly, it's so helpful. And recently, I've been a part of the network called All Raise, and it's a group, it's a nonprofit, and it's a group of women founders who have either raised their seed round or you know, beyond that, or are currently looking to raise their first round in seed funding. You know, and as we talked about being underrepresented, you know, we're definitely underrepresented in terms of getting investment and venture capital. And sometimes we, you know, think that that's no longer an option, but if we get educated and kind of understand the options that are available and seeing, you know, what venture capital firms are now focused on underrepresented founders, then we can kind of make, you know, we just have to pick and choose which investors, you know, we want to work with and which companies make the best sense for us to partner with. So just being educated in those areas has been really, really helpful for me, eye-opening, I want to say. So those are kind of like my go-to networks in terms of entrepreneurship. So I will leave, well, I have one last question, and then I want to know if we can open it up for any other questions from the audience. But actually, you know, I'll open it up. Does anyone have any questions for the panel right now? And if not, then I will just ask the last question. And anyways, you guys can put it in the chat. That way we can keep flowing. So I would love to have, you know, just everyone's like final thought, like final tip that you want to share with the audience. Maybe that's just, you know, it could either be something like a quote that you stick by all the time, or maybe there's just one tip that has helped you along your journey. But honestly, anything that's personal for you or has been helpful that you want to share with the audience, we want to hear it. So I will start. So Garry asked a really great question, and this is actually something I had wanted to touch on before, but I did forget. How can our startup ecosystem better support Latinx entrepreneurs?
Yeah, I mean, I'll jump in. So I think that even as a Latinx with a pretty serious high-level network, when I was pitching my idea, which is a pretty awesome idea, it was just the first reaction was, can you do it? You know, and, you know, as I went through and, you know, I had talked to 13 CEOs, like my close friends, and the 14th one was a lady who actually came to my wedding, and she's an awesome CEO. And she was like, this is great. Immediately, she's like, this is what we're going to do. Took me to brunch the next day, like brought me into her network. And then I was like, well, what did I do wrong with my other friends? And, you know, I think there is an unconscious bias when you look like someone who's not a normal entrepreneur. I mean, if you look at venture capitalists, and as Esteban says, I quote it, when I'm having fun, I do statistics, which is the nerdiest thing I've ever heard. I love it. But when you do statistics, Latinx has less than 4% of funding in the United States, less than 4%. And most venture capitalists have less than 1%. And so it's going to be like, don't look at your Latinx founders of what they've done, but what they can do. And that's the only way we're going to improve those numbers. Because if you look at our past, well, our past is, you know, complicated. So I think that's my soapbox.
Yeah. Thanks, CJ. Ivonne, I would love to hear from you, because I know you're like a new entrepreneur, and I would love to know, like, where do you see there, you know, feel like there's gaps that you're missing that you could potentially use more support and help?
Yeah, this is a good question. And so for me, my shift changing my mind from being an engineer and like the process and getting the equipment going to seeing a business, putting a business plan together. That was the biggest struggle for me, to switch my brain into business mode. Okay, I know how to make it. I know how to make the shoes, how to reach out to manufacturing plants. and all that, but how am I going to put this idea in paper that when I am going to talk to banks or like to pitch my idea for economical, for money, for support, what's the best way to do it? And I've tried to reach out to, I guess, what's the word, mentors. Look for mentors that could help me with that. And like DJ says, when you first pitch your idea, and I think my idea is so different that is like, why do you want fashionable shoes for work if you're going to work? I'm like, yeah, that's the mentality we want to break because we want fashionable shoes and there's no fashionable shoes. And trying to have this as a woman in breaking through that entrepreneur world, that we have all different ideas and try to pitch that idea, and not knowing the business world. If you come from the world outside business, trying to go into the business world mentality, what do they speak? How do they talk? What are the words that need to be using? How do I make my business plan? I've spent so many hours in Googling, finding templates, rewriting that business plan. Like, you have no idea. I know how to put the numbers, I have the research, but just putting the words and make it like, this is presentable. Like, that's, I guess, my biggest struggle right now. And it's been for a while that I feel like I'm hitting a wall. Like, is this business plan good to present it? How do I present it? How do I ask for that support that I need to bring my company up and running? So I think as addressing that, having mentors that could help you figure out through those things, to know that not everyone who is going to start a company comes from the business world. We all have different ideas. And if you're brave enough to say, you know what, I'm going to make this idea possible, it's taking a lot of guts, and we're just figuring it out as we're going. So yeah, that's my answer.
So Tracy just said, come to Startup Roundtable and pitch. So that's.
Thank you, Tracy.
Is that at Tracy? Is that at Venture Cafe, or is that?
It is every Thursday at about 5:30. We usually have a group of entrepreneurs and folks come together and just talk about their ideas and pitch their ideas. And it's very community based. The feedback is usually really productive, and the folks come back week after week. So, you know, maybe you'll get a homework assignment to practice a certain aspect of your pitch, or to define your market better, or whatever that idea is, and then come back a couple of weeks later and share your pitch again and see how it's grown and evolved.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah. Are there any workshops like outside of just the pitch, like maybe as you're starting to craft your pitch or the components of your pitch before you actually have to, you know, pitch in front of people, Tracy?
Garry. We have often done several of those. I don't think that we have any on the agenda right now, but always good to get the prompting because I think those sessions are really incredible. And in fact, I kind of laugh and joke towards Garry because we got to know Garry because he did his first session at Venture Cafe was perfecting your pitch. And so it was a really great session. So that's why I was kind of smiling and laughing at Garry.
So it sounds like the community is asking for a pitch practice session as a precursor to coming in and presenting at Startup. Cool. Yeah, so we can absolutely make that happen. Venture Cafe is here to be a resource for you all. So that's why I put the question out there. So if there's programming sessions that you're interested in seeing, or if there's help that you need, please continue to let us know, and we will design around your needs.
Yeah, Absolutely. No, great. I think that it is definitely needed, like those components of the pitch. It needs to be, I think, broken down a little bit more, maybe into those like separate workshops to allow, you know, new entrepreneurs to be able to understand like how to actually craft those different components of the pitch, and you know, then be able to actually pitch or feel more comfortable pitching in front of a room. Also, there's a million cups. That's really great for in terms of just pitch practice. And honestly, what would be great is, and honestly, I don't know of any, and excuse me if I'm wrong, but I would love if there was more programs focused on like just helping with startup capital. You know, maybe not like a seed round, nothing as big as that, or an angel round, but maybe something as small as just, you know, just startup capital, like being able to, you know, create your operations and start something with maybe small investments or grants.
It's great feedback. And one of my favorite sessions was a session that we did over a year ago now, but it was around funding your hustle. And it was really a lot of the idea that people have great ideas, and many times your entrepreneurial endeavor starts out as a hustle. It doesn't start out as your primary source of income. And so how can you find those not traditional, I'm not going to go, you know, raise a significant amount of money, but how do you kind of validate those ideas? And so also another really good idea for us to consider in the near future.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Tracy and Garry. Really appreciate it. Does anyone have any questions or, you know, final comments, concerns?
Yeah, I would like to, if you allow me, I appreciate that you guys invited me here, even though I'm not an entrepreneur. I'm a tech guy, and even not a tech guy, I don't know what I am at this point. There's so many hats that I'm carrying now that it's difficult to say. But anyway, the thing is that working with Hogworks, what we are trying to overcome somehow is that this lack of resources that youth has. So some of them had great ideas. Some of them had done even their own companies, which is good. But a lot of them don't have this this sense of community. But let me rephrase. It's not just a sense of community. It's the idea of how I can put my resources in a place where I'm going to break this cycle of, I don't know, poverty or underrepresentation on. Because that's probably one of the main factors that it's keeping kids, youth, Latino, Black, whatever, in not being able to fulfill a different dream. Maybe it's not the dream of the Latinx first generation, could be the second generation. But in order to do that, you need to break this little circle that you have that for a number of reasons you cannot break. So having the chance to be with you and listen your stories, I think it would be a great chance for the kids to participate in order to give different perspective, different resources. So if you guys have opening sometime, it would be great if you could participate with us, having, I don't know, a Zoom event, whatever, and then trying to interact with the guys. I'm sure that they will appreciate it, and we certainly appreciate that.
I can piggyback on what Esteban said. We actually have a pitch event going on at HopeWorks. We would love for anybody interested to participate, encourage some of our young entrepreneurs. It's a free event. I'll share the link in the chat, but it's just something cool to maybe check us out, get to connect, and get to see some cool ideas.
Yeah, I love that idea. Thank you so much. I did not know that you guys were having a pitch competition. That was actually one of my next things, was to say, why don't we have more pitch competitions? So thank you so much, Dan, for sharing that. I would love to join and also share with my network. So the kids are, the youth are pitching for, is it some type of prize, or it's just, you know, for fun?
A little bit of both. So there is some money involved. So it is a competitive opportunity. I believe we have like between maybe 5 and 7 young entrepreneurs pitching their idea.
Yep.
Some are earlier in their entrepreneur idea and business. Some are already working within it and developing it. And so there will be some cash prizes, but really just the opportunity to encourage them and also provide feedback. You know, that would be amazing. So anybody, no pressure, but anybody who wants to participate, we'd love to have you.
Also, this is Dan from HopeWorks. I'll drop a link in the chat of last year's pitch competition so you can see the quality of the pitchers. And Dan Krause is also being humble. He's a coach for one of our pitchers as well. So you'll know who he's cheering for.
Yeah, it's conflict of interest, yeah. But that's great. I would love to join, and I think it's so needed, especially for the youth to just have that confidence in themselves to know that they can, you know, obviously do anything they want, especially early. Definitely will be attending that, Dan.
Nice. Awesome.
All right. If we don't have any other questions or any other comments, I will turn it over to Venture Cafe to close us out.
Thank you so much, Shannon. Thank you all for an amazing panel discussion. This was really awesome, very inspiring and motivating. We should definitely continue these conversations. And like we mentioned before, definitely if you have ideas for other sessions, or if there's any area of need that you sort of see in the community, especially around supporting Latinx leaders and entrepreneurs, like, please let us know. With that being said, we hope you all had a wonderful Thursday. We really appreciate you for coming, and please feel free to join us next week and every single Thursday for our Thursday gathering. If you're interested in pitching your startup, 5:30 to 6:30 is when we host Startup Roundtable. We may also be having some other pitch events in the future, so please stay tuned. Thank you all, and have a wonderful rest of your night.
Thanks, Garry.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.